Hi there, Mike Perez with Mastering the Young Band. This video is going to cover beginner flute embouchure formation. I'm a percussionist, so teaching flute I find to be the most challenging beginner instrument to teach to my beginner students. So if you're like me, this is a challenging embouchure to teach, and hopefully this video will help you to be able to successfully teach your beginner flutes. The method that I'm about to teach you, I get about a 90% success rate. So about 10% of my kids, I have to do some other things and try some different paths and instructional techniques to get them to play into their full instrument. But about 90% of my beginner flutes will get a sound and be successful on their flute embouchure from this method. So the first thing I always teach all my beginners is posture. What I use is I use 4 steps. We call it fanny front, where they're 4 inches off the back of their chair, feet flat on the floor. And by the way, if you have students that are younger and when they're 4 inches off the back of their chair, if their feet aren't flat on the floor, have them scoot up further till they are. Sit tall. It's a relaxed sit tall. It's not rigid. It's just a sit tall, not hunched over. Next is I teach chin up. It's just basically your chin is parallel to the ground, chin up, basically making eye contact with the teacher, and you'll be chin up. And then the next thing is a 2-count breath. So with my young band students, I don't do a 1-count breath. I do a 2-count breath. So I go 1, 2, they breathe in through their nose, and then they blow out to make their vibrations for their sounds. So for beginner flute, we go ahead and start like this. They'll go, I'll say 1, 2, they breathe in through their nose. And then what I do with my beginner flutes is I do what's called a tongue stop. So I will show my flutes, just off the bat, I'll do this. Okay, watch me. 1, 2. And what I'll do that several times, and I'll walk around. So I usually have my beginners in an arc. I'll walk around and point to show them that I'm breathing through my nose and that I'm plugging my tongue between my lips. I'll do that several times. Here it is one more time. 1, 2. And then I'll ask the students, what did you see? And I might even guide it more. Did I breathe in through my nose or my mouth? Through my nose, yeah. So I went 1, 2, and then I breathed in through my nose for how many counts? Do you know? And we'll talk about that. It was 2 counts. So yeah, that's a 2-count breath. Then I'll ask them, now, I didn't just blow my air out. Can you tell me what did I do? And what I'm looking for is for the students to say is, I couldn't breathe out because my tongue was plugging my lips. It was preventing my air from coming out. So I'm kind of holding my breath. And that tongue is like a stopper that's not letting the air come out. And then when I release my tongue, that's when my air comes out. We talk about my lips were gripping my tongue. They weren't squeezing it with a death grip, really, really tight, but they were squeezing my tongue. And what that did is that did some different things with my lips that we're going to talk about in a moment. And then I'll demonstrate it a few more times, and then we will try it together. So we'll do the 2-count breath. We'll go 1, 2. And I will usually guide the students. So the words I will say is 1, 2, nose, plug, release, 2, 3, 4, stop, 1, 2, nose, plug, blow, 2, and I'll just do that a bunch of times, usually about 4 times. I'll talk about something 4 more times. Then after that is when I introduce the mirrors. If you don't use mirrors with your young band students yet, I highly recommend it. I just use mirrors that you can get from Amazon. These mirrors, I buy them in bulk. I buy 100 per year because I usually have about 100 beginners per year. And they're 50 cents each. They're the unbreakable kind, so they're not made of glass or anything like that. They're flexible. And the students, you'll see there's 2 sides to it, but the students, they're just really light, and I just give one to each beginner at the beginning of the year, and I teach them to put it in their binder so it doesn't break and crack. I also tell them not to overbend it because it'll break. So we use these mirrors with my beginners a lot at the beginning of the year. I even use these with my second and third year players when we're working on other concepts. So how I have my beginners hold their mirror, I teach them how to hold it, because otherwise you'll get kids that do this, you'll get kids that do this, you'll get all kinds of variation. You want them to hold the mirror in a way to where you can see the embouchure clearly. So what I tell them to do is I tell them to raise their right hand, 2 fingers and a thumb, and their 2 fingers and a thumb go on the bottom right-hand corner. So they need to hold their mirror like that. So we'll just practice that. Okay, 2 fingers and a thumb on your mirror. Now you hold it up straight in front of you because you're sitting tall, chin up. We never look at our mirrors down. So sit tall, chin up, 2 fingers and a thumb. And then we go through our reps again. 1, 2, nose, plug, 2, 3, 4, blow, 2, 3, 4, and so on. So we do usually about 4 reps, then we'll talk about something. Now, what you're gonna see with your students is you're gonna see some students, when they do the lip grip, they do this. Instead of really expelling their air quickly, they'll go 1, 2, and they'll take like this extra breath. So that's something you have to fix. Another thing that you'll sometimes see with your students is they're just either not using enough tongue or too much tongue. This is obviously too much. This isn't enough. You want to be able to see the tip of their tongue. That's how I explain it to them. So I'll show them, here's what it should look like. And I'll walk around the room so they can see that. And I'll say, okay, hold your mirrors up, and everybody just put your tongue where mine was. And we just practice that. Okay, now as we do our repetitions with our 2-count breath, see if you can get the right amount of tongue showing in your mirror. So we do that, we'll focus on the tongue. Then I'll mention to them, hey, look at my top lip when I do this. Here's my normal lip. Here's my flute lip. And I'll mention to them, did you see how my lip went down? What that creates is what I call a bunny lip. If you see a cute bunny, their lip looks like that. My lip is pointing down and it's firming up. It's snugging up against my tongue. So say, okay, let's do some reps in our mirror. See if you can get a bunny lip like I do. Here we go. Posture, and we'll get our posture. 2 fingers and a thumb. Get your mirror up. 1, 2, breathe, and we'll go through and do the reps, focusing on that top lip, which I call the bunny lip. Now, the next thing that I'll talk about with this is their aperture. You'll notice on the board behind me, over here, I've drawn 2 sets of lips, and I always have these on the board, or I'll draw them while the kids are watching, and they laugh and they giggle. I'll go, okay, what did I just draw? They'll go, are those lips? Yeah, I was like, stick with teaching band, Mr. Perez. Okay, all right, no offense taken. Now, I show them when you are playing flute, the opening in your lip is called the aperture. And I do teach them that term aperture. We don't call it the hole or the opening. We just call it the actual term, which is the aperture. And I'll say, notice that the aperture on the flute is a skinny oval. What you don't want is a circle that's really big. So you don't want this when you're playing flute. You want, and I'll walk around the room and I'll show them that. Then we'll do some repetitions. So we focused on the tongue, we focused on the bunny lip, and now we're gonna focus on our aperture. 2 fingers and a thumb, get your mirrors up, and we do a bunch of reps trying to get them to get their aperture correct. By the way, while the students are doing this, I am walking down the row, looking at kids, and if they're doing it well, like when we're going through all of our repetitions, I'm going, yes, that's great, awesome. Make your aperture a little bit smaller next time. Too much tongue, perfect tongue, and so on. Like, every repetition, I'm walking around, constantly giving them feedback. And of course, praise, kids love getting praise at the beginning. They want to do it right. No kid starts flute and doesn't want to do it right. So they love that feedback, and that's what's so great about what we do. You can give them that formative feedback right away. So after we've done a lot of repetitions, and 90% of the kids, top lip, tongue, and aperture look good, then it's time to move on. Notice I said 90%, not 100%. You're gonna have a few kids that are gonna struggle with this a little bit. When it's about 90%, so if you have 10 beginner flutes, once 9 of them can do it really well, it's time to move on. I would even say maybe 8. So if you have 2 that aren't, it's time to move on. Those kids are going to get it. They just might need more repetition and time to let it marinate and to click. So the next step after that is our finger embouchure. So what I do, so we hold the mirror with the right hand, 2 fingers and a thumb, and then with our left pointer finger. So I tell them, okay, so hold up your left hand, hold up number 1. What you're going to do is you're going to tuck that underneath your bottom lip. Notice how you can still see the dry part of my bottom lip. Notice that I use that term dry. I've heard teachers use the term red before. Not all students' lips are red. My lip is not red, okay? So use the term dry. It's more inclusive of all your students. So we talk about that pointer finger being underneath the bottom lip. You can still see the dry. I'll show them. Here's what you don't want. I'm not on the dry part. I'm underneath. It's tucked under. And then I show them, now I'm gonna do my 2 count breath, my bunny lip aperture. Watch what this looks like with my finger. 1, 2. 1, 2. And I'll do that several times. I'll say, all right, now it's your turn. Here we go, everybody. So hold up your pointer finger, hold up your mirror, tuck your finger underneath your lip, look in your mirror, make sure you're not covering the dry part of your lip. And here we go, 1, 2, and we do a bunch of reps with the pointer finger. Now, after they've done a couple reps, we'll talk about, did you hear that sound I was getting? I call that rushing air. And I'll tell them, say rushing air, rushing air. That's the sound you want because when you're playing flute, your air goes more down than it goes straight. So when we practice our repetitions, we talk about, could you hear your rushing air between your aperture and your finger? Now, as we go through the reps, you have to constantly reinforce. Do you have the bunny lip? Is your aperture correct? Do you see the right amount of tongue when you are playing? Now, here's a couple of common things you're going to see from beginner flute embouchure. The first one is there's just no bunny lip. So you'll get some kids that do this. They'll go. And they just push everything out. So a good remedy for that is say, can you grip your tongue a little bit tighter, grip harder, and as you blow out, keep your bunny lip frozen. Inevitably, those kids won't be able to do it a couple reps. They're still going to go. And they just blow it out. That's one common mistake that you're going to see is kids just want to blow that out. And as you notice, when that bunny lip doesn't come down and keep there, then the aperture is too big. They go hand in hand. That bunny lip and too big of an aperture really go hand in hand. Every once in a while, you won't see this one as often, but it can happen. Sometimes you'll see a student suck in their bottom lip when they blow. Here's what that one looks like. That one's pretty easy to see, but obviously if they do that, they lose that aperture altogether. So those are the top 2 that I see from my beginner flute players. So we've introduced the finger embouchure. We do the rushing air. We've talked about the bunny lip, the oval aperture, and the rushing air. Then the next step is what I call upside down head joint. So much of teaching flute and any beginner instrument is really good steps. Great scaffolds is the educational term for it. And a scaffold that I've added for my beginner flutes that helps them because if they go from their finger embouchure right to the tone hole, more often than not, they lose their embouchure and then they panic and they start doing weird stuff to get a sound on their head joint. So I introduced what I call upside down head joint. And what it is the students hold their flute upside down with the tone hold down. So they'll hold their flute upside down like this with their left hand. They'll hold their mirror, 2 fingers and a thumb. And what we do is say, hey, this is just replacing your finger. Here we go. 1, 2. 1, 2. We'll do 4 reps. We'll talk about it. How many of you heard rushing air? How many of you could see your bunny lip? How many of you saw an oval aperture? We go over all of those same steps. Then once they're getting pretty good at keeping their embouchure formation and getting rushing air, then I start talking about fog. I was like, hey, how many of you noticed you could see some fog on your head joint when you were playing? And you'll see some hands going up. You'll see some kids that didn't even notice. Go, hey, we're gonna do that again. Look in your mirror for fog this time on your head joint. By the way, as I was doing this, I was remembering with flutes, it's not a bad idea when you do upside down head joint or head joint to have them hold it with their right hand and the mirror with the left. It's just more stable to hold it with their right hand. I was noticing when I was doing it with the left, it's just a little bit heavier. So you might want to flip that around, mirror with the left hand and then holding it with their right. So just a quick side note. Anyway, back to the fog. You'll notice on the board over here, what I show the students is I go, pretend that this is your flute, this is your head joint. You should see either kind of an oval of fog or even a triangle, a pizza slice of fog. When you are fogging, you want to see that. What you don't want to see is a really big cloud of fog. That tells me that your aperture is too open. You need to use more bunny lip. So we'll do a bunch of reps focusing on the fog. Once it's looking pretty good, again, about 90% of your kids do it, then it's time to switch to the actual head joint itself. Now, what I do with the head joint is I like to start them with the tone hole against the chin, and then we roll out to catch the bottom lip. And what I'll do is I'll draw on the board. I don't have it drawn right now, but I'll show them their bottom lip needs to cover about 1/4 to 1/3 of the tone hole. So you don't want it out too far. This is too far. This is too much. That's about 50%. And it should be about 1/4 to 1/3. So we'll practice. Okay, here we go, everybody. Tone hole against your chin. Roll out and freeze. And then I'll walk down the line and I'll say, good. And sometimes I don't even tell them to roll out or roll in because they do it too much. I just get it. I get a kid's flute and I'll roll it in and I'll roll it out. We go, okay, relax, do it again. Check your posture, tone hole against your chin, roll out, freeze. Go around, good. And once I say good, they can relax. Fix it, good. And then just go through, let's do it again. Just do a lot of reps rolling out. You want your beginner flutes in the habit of every time they play, tone hole against the chin, roll out. Then, once they are setting that tone hole correct, and by the way, making sure it's not off to the left or right, once that looks good, then it's time to start playing on the head joint. I do, by the way, start with open head joint. I'll have them hold it, 2 fingers and a thumb, tone hole against your chin, roll out, walk around, make sure it's set. 1, 2. 1, 2, and so on. We go through and do those reps. Now you'll notice even in my demonstration, mine kind of cracked up higher. That's okay. You're gonna have some students that are blowing pretty hard or blowing a little bit too tight to start. I'd rather them be a little bit too firm in their beginner flute embouchure than too loose. I find it's easier to bring kids down in their intensity than to bring it up. So we'll do a ton of reps with open head joint. I don't recommend going to the closed head joint for quite a while. Just do a ton of open to help them get that embouchure really set. Once it's looking pretty good, then you can go to the closed head joint, and this obviously helps them once they go to their full instrument. I'm going to do another video that introduces how I start the students on their full instrument. I will teach you everything from the first note I teach to their first 5 notes, but that'll be in a separate video. So my resources are mikeperezband.com. You can find me on Instagram and YouTube as Mastering the Young Band. Check out the content I have out there. Hopefully you find it useful, and I hope that was helpful for you for your beginner flutes.